Breaking news tonight on the investigation of the attempted Christmas Day bombing. CNN has learned that the father of the terror suspect met with the CIA, but the report of that meeting was never passed on to the wider intelligence community. A failure that could turn into a major headache for the Obama administration. Listen to the president. This was just a little while ago.
It's been widely reported that the father of the suspect in the Christmas incident warned U.S. officials in Africa about his son's extremist views. It now appears that weeks ago, this information was passed to a component of our intelligence community, but was not effectively distributed so as to get the suspect's name on a no-fly list. There appears to be other deficiencies as well. Even without this one report, there were bits of information available within the intelligence community that could have and should have been pieced together.
For more on this, we bring in our senior political correspondent, Candy Crowley, now, and Homeland Security correspondent, Jean Meserve, as well, who broke today's news on the CIA to walk us through all this. And, Jean, let me start with you. I know you've been working multiple sources on this story. Just take us through exactly how many times the suspect's father did talk to the CIA and what he told them, what we know about that.
Well, we don't know how many times he talked to the CIA, but we're getting a better sense of how many times he talked to the embassy. And, of course, there are often CIA personnel stationed at an embassy. A source familiar with the family's contacts says that the father met twice face-to-face with embassy officials. In addition, we're told by U.S. officials that there were phone calls. We don't know exactly how many, but more than one. Campbell?
And what did the CIA do with that information, as far as we know? Did they pass it along to somebody? Did they sit on it? What happened?
Some of it clearly got passed along. There was an effort to take this information and push it along. That's why his name got entered on the so-called TIDE database, which is an enormous list of people who may have some terrorist ties. As we know by now, he didn't get bumped up to a higher level because they felt the information they had on him wasn't specific enough and credible enough. But there also was a report, I'm told, by a well-placed source done by the CIA personnel at that embassy in Nigeria that was passed on to CIA headquarters in Langley. And what I'm told is that it sat there for 5 weeks. It was not disseminated to the wider intelligence community. And I'm told that if it had been, that perhaps they could have pieced it together with other pieces of intelligence that perhaps did not have a name attached to it, and it would have added up, and perhaps they would have been able to stop this flight. It didn't move out of Langley, I'm told, until after the attempted attack on Christmas Day.
And Jean, does anybody at Langley have any sort of response for why this happened, for how it happened?
Yes, some pushback from the CIA spokesman. We now have an on-the-record comment from George Little. He's the spokesman for the agency. He says, we learned of him in November. That's when the father came to the embassy. We did not have his name before then. We worked with the embassy to ensure he was in the government terrorist database, including mention of his possible extremist connections to Yemen. We also forwarded key biographical information about him to the National Counterterrorism Center. Then it goes on to say that this agency, like all the others in government, is reviewing data to which it had access, this part of the government-wide review, to determine if there are other pieces of intelligence which may have been pieced together. The president's comment certainly indicates that, and my source indicates that. It wasn't that this report in and of itself would have broken the case wide open. The source says that what was needed was for this piece to be put together with all the others that had been collected.
And I think that's what's making people so crazy, Jean, and Candy, I'll go to you on this, is that that's what all of this, that's all the changes in our government and our lives, the creation of Homeland Security, were all supposed to be about improving our ability to put the pieces together, to connect the dots. And that clearly didn't happen here. And, Candy, maybe that's why the president sounded pretty angry today.
He did sound angry today. You know, this is not a president that's given to a lot of emotion, but there are times when I have seen him over the past couple of years when he's been angry, and this was one of them. And he clearly wanted to forcefully suggest to the people working on this that he wants to know as much information as he can get, as quickly as he can get. One of the interesting things about this, I think, is that this incident occurred Christmas Day on Friday. Sunday, Monday, Janet Napolitano was on State of the Union, and I specifically asked her how this man was able to get on an airline when his father had gone to an embassy and suggested that he was an extremist and he was worried about it. And she said at the time, well, we don't know what he said. We're looking into that. We also know that it wasn't until today that the president came out and began to talk about that. Yet all the while, I'm assuming since Christmas Day, there was this report at Langley. I think there's a suggestion there that perhaps neither the Homeland Security Secretary nor the president knew about this until sometime in the last 24 hours, which I think points up another problem. Now, it may be that they were trying to connect the dots. They had the report immediately and they were trying to figure out where it had gone. But it seems to me that from Friday to Tuesday is a pretty long time for the president to get this kind of information, and that may have led to his anger. But it also may have just been the fact that here we are again 8 years later, as you suggest. We created this Homeland Security group so that they could bring all of these dots together and we could stop this sort of thing, and it doesn't appear, at least as far as we know, that this happened. And one of the dots was a big one. It was Britain revoking or refusing this man's visa. Somehow that information also didn't seem to go anywhere from our strongest ally.
So where does this go from here? I mean, Candy, I know you were reporting that the president is planning to brief members of Congress. You can see where the politics can clearly take this, with Republicans now having an opportunity to turn this on its head and say that here we have the Obama administration who's dropped the ball on this front. What is this going to potentially turn into? Congressional hearings? What are we looking at?
There'll definitely be congressional hearings. Let me just say I don't believe it's the president who'll be briefing, but there will be top leadership and the relevant committees will be briefed tomorrow, we think by a conference call, about what has gone on and what they know. I would suspect at this point, and I think, as Jean said, they're getting pushback from the CIA. We don't really know the CIA rationale and what happened, but I would suspect at this point that the heat will be more on the CIA than it would be on President Obama. But you're right, 2010, as we know, when these hearings will take place, is an election year. It's awfully hard to wring the politics out of anything during an election year.
Campbell, go ahead, Jean.
If I could just jump in here, that I've talked to some people, including some people from the previous administration, who don't think it's quite fair for the Republicans to pile on to this and make it a partisan issue, because these systems were set up during the last administration. Now, so there's going to be some shared responsibility here, they feel, if the systems weren't working properly.
As we try to delve a little bit more into where the breakdown actually occurred. Jean Meserve, great reporting, Jean, and Candy Crowley, as always, appreciate it. Thank you both very much. We're going to have a whole lot more on this, including looking closer at this big question of how exactly this could happen. More than 8 years after 9/11, did another intelligence failure nearly allow a terrorist to blast a plane full of passengers out of the sky? We have more experts coming up on how the government can possibly fix this problem once and for all. Stay with us.